So everybody thinks they know how to get in the UFC. They think you need to train hard, you need to win fights, you need to keep up with your social media, all this different stuff, and they're wrong. Obviously, they're not completely wrong. That's only a small portion of what has to get done, what decisions you have to make and stuff like that. I've lived this, I've breathed it. I've been a fighter for years now, and 99% of people aren't going to make it in the UFC. And even if you follow these steps I'm about to give you, there's definitely no guarantees of this ever happening. But I promise I'll give you the best chance possible, in my opinion, to get to the UFC. So let's dive in. I don't want to waste your time. Your first 2 years are crucial, guys. If you're trying to go to the UFC, your first 2 years are absolutely crucial. And when I say crucial, I'm talking about from a technique standpoint. If you have bad technique, it takes you, from my experience, it takes you sometimes twice as long to fix this technique if it's bad. Let's say you box for 2 years. This was the situation I ran into as well. If you box for 2 years, and let's say every time you throw a jab, you're dropping your right hand and no one's correcting it, and they just keep letting you break these bad habits, and they'll say, oh, keep your hands up, but they're not teaching you how to keep your hands up, right? If you did that for 2 years, it may take you 4 to break that habit. That's how bad this can get if you develop bad technique, especially from striking, because striking, you get more reps in striking. If I tell you to throw as many jabs as you can in one round of practice, you're going to throw a lot of jabs, but if I tell you to do a double leg takedown, you're not getting anywhere near as many reps. So even striking, it's even more crucial for the technique. I would suggest boxing for at least 1.5 years to 2 years before I even move to kickboxing or anything else, because hands are so crucial today. They've always been crucial, but they're very crucial with 4-ounce gloves, and more people are adopting boxing and becoming better boxers. Like a good probably 90% of knockouts in MMA all come from hands. They're not coming from head kicks. They're not coming from flying knees, even though you should train these things and add them. But you need to get your boxing on point. If you want to go to the UFC, you better have boxing. Also, you better know how to wrestle, offensively and defensively. Wrestling is king because it determines where the fight is going to be. In my opinion, half my wins are by submission, guys. I'm a big believer in jiu-jitsu. If you can't wrestle, it doesn't matter how good you are at jiu-jitsu. Or if you can't strike, you can't take the guy down, you're in trouble. If you're a better striker and you can't stop the takedown, you're going to be in trouble. So you have to wrestle and you have to box. Obviously, if you have a high school wrestling background, this drastically helps things. But another thing I see happen all the time is I see a lot of people trying to emulate people that are freak athletes, just have attributes that most people don't, like Alex Pereira, who's a knockout artist and can knock people out with a jab. That's not saying his technique isn't good. His technique is world class, but you cannot pattern your game after someone that has abnormal knockout power if you don't have abnormal knockout power. Any more than you can pattern your game against someone or pattern your game like someone that has exceptional speed, someone who's super fast. You have to be realistic with yourself. But the main thing is you have to have world-class coaching. You have to have high-level coaching. You cannot stay loyal to people that don't teach high-level technique, and that's a major issue you see throughout the board in MMA, is loyalty can hurt you or it can help you. I would never trade getting more sparring partners and better teammates for superior coaching. Superior coaching is the only thing that's getting you or keeping you there. There's lots of guys that get to the UFC and make it to the UFC, but they don't have good coaching. And those are the guys that generally go 2-2 and get cut and just think they weren't good enough when realistically they were staying loyal to people that didn't correct high-level technique. And technique is what matters in the UFC or any big organization like that, because what happens is the people that make it to the UFC have attributes that already get them there. They're already strong, they're already fast, they're already tall, they're already tough, have better cardio. They have some attribute. I mean, it could be cardio is an attribute. Cardio is an attribute for me, plus being tall. I'm not no knockout artist. I'm not super strong. I'm decently strong. I had certain attributes and I learned how to use those. That was cardio and that was my height. Other people have other attributes. Cardio is one everybody can have though. But if it doesn't matter how many attributes you have, if you don't have high-level technique, it's unlikely you're getting to the UFC, or you're definitely not staying in the UFC unless maybe you're a freak athlete. But besides that, you need to make sure, you need to train constantly, guys. You need to make sure your coaching is world-class, and you need to make sure you're training, I would say minimum 6 days a week. I would say if you really want to get to the UFC, you need to be training at least 5 days a week, probably 6 days a week. And it doesn't mean you need to go hard all the time. Another common mistake I see people not doing is not drilling. They don't drill, especially grappling techniques. Think of it this way. There's a lot of guys that come into MMA and they want to fight in the UFC, and they're not starting. They didn't even start training until they were 20 years old. And I was a good example of this. I didn't start grappling until I was 22 years old. Once I got to the Ultimate Fighter and I saw what world-class coaching is, I was put in a position where I was forced to have to start drilling. And once I got in that environment, I wanted to do it anyway because everybody else was doing it, right? But if you don't drill grappling, wrestling, cage defense, cage offense, you don't drill these techniques. What do you think hitting a bag is, guys? Hitting a heavy bag is drilling. It's just faster paced than maybe drilling a slow jiu-jitsu move, but it's still drilling. You're doing the same 6, 7 punches over and over and over again. The same has to be applied to grappling. So you have to drill. If you want to get to the UFC, you need to learn how to fall in love with drilling, unless you've been training your whole life. That's another issue I see, is that a lot of guys think they can follow the path of someone that's been training for 10 years longer than them. And that's just not realistic unless they're like freak athlete or something maybe. But as a whole, you need to drill. And if you're starting, the later you start, the more you have to drill compared to your teammates. And the thing is, if you do, you can catch them. If you can take a kid who's been doing jiu-jitsu for 10 years, and if you do more reps than him in a 3 or let's say a 4 or 5 year time period, maybe 5 year time period. If you do more reps in 5 years than the other guy did in 10, you might be as good as him in 5 years that it took him 10 because he wasn't willing to drill, or he was from a school that didn't teach that, didn't make their fighters or their students do that. A few things, obviously training hard, winning fights, all of that matters. Getting a good manager that can match you up to opponents that are going to give you the best chance to win, because there's a lot of people you could beat, but maybe you need more time to beat them. Have your coach and your manager match you up the proper way as well. That's just as important as being skilled at fighting. So there's many variables here, but I would say no matter what, you're going to have high-level coaching. You're going to have to cut away the coaches that aren't serving you well from a technique standpoint. It doesn't matter if this gym over here has 30 fighters in it and your gym only has 2 fighters. If your coach is way more technically better, you need to stay with him and then maybe go cross-train. I've seen that happen a lot here where I live in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Tough fighters that are naturally tough guys, but don't want to drill technique, don't want to be disciplined, don't want to learn and get thousands of reps on these techniques. So they just go here, there, go to 4 different gyms and spar all the time. And then you fast forward and you look, and the majority of the people they're sparring are journeyman fighters. They're not high-level guys, and they're never going to make it to a high level no matter how much they spar because they're not learning technique. So there's one thing. Make sure your coaching is world-class. Never give up world-class coaching for a few different sparring partners that don't have that technique level. Stop being loyal to coaches that don't correct technique, that don't fix technique, especially defense guys. I would go as far as say most people that have never fought, that don't have good amount of fights, don't teach high-level technique from a defensive standpoint. The best coaches I've had, and I've worked with a lot of coaches over the years, the best coaches I've ever had from a defensive standpoint are the ones that actually had a lot of fights. That was my problem. Was defense. Was defense. I had horrible defense. I was taught horrible defense from my original coach, and I don't blame the rest of my coaches that I worked with after that, because I stayed loyal to this man for a very long time. It bit me in my butt later on in my career when I started running the high-level guys. Once again, don't think because this gym has more fighters in it that they're better from a technique standpoint. Technique is everything. Same thing in grappling. I went to multiple gyms. I used to train at 3 or 4 different gyms here in Dallas-Fort Worth for grappling, and then I found one gym with a coach named Master Sina. He was an Iranian national team member in judo. And he was a world champion, black belt, world champion at the Masters division. He was a little older when he started jiu-jitsu, but was high-level, world-class jiu-jitsu guy. And then he hooked me up with the Iranian wrestlers in Dallas that I started working with, and I did about 5 years with them. And I learned world-class grappling technique, and because of that, I've never lost a fight on the ground. So I'm very, very blessed. The last time I lost a fight on the ground was my second or third amateur fight. I got armbarred, and at that point I had 4 months of grappling, so that didn't even count it for anything really as an amateur fighter. But world-class technique grappling and striking is the only way you're getting to the UFC, or it's definitely the only way you're staying in the UFC. So I hope this video was kind of long. I hope it answered some questions. Once again, you need to drill. You need to have world-class technique. You need to stay loyal to people that teach world-class technique. You don't need to stay loyal to people that don't teach world-class technique. You need to drill like it's a religion. You need to drill every day. You can't train hard, especially grappling. You can't train hard grappling every day, but you can drill every single day. All of this boils down to the 80-20 principle, guys. The 80-20 rule. 80% of the shit you learn, you're not going to use in a real fight for the most part. So focus on drilling that 20% constantly, and those are the ones that are going to get you wins. My 80-20 was neck attacks, guillotines, darces. I have those in the UFC. My right hand, boxing, my right hand was my money shot. In MMA, I have multiple wins with my right hand. McGregor disguises everything. Everything he does is to set the left hand up. Focus on the stuff you're good at naturally and the stuff that you know will work at a high level, and focus on master. If your right hand is your money shot, you need to set up 10 different setups on how you're going to land this and become fluid with it, right? So that's just my advice, guys. You got to drill. You got to have world-class technique. You can't stay loyal to people that teach mediocre technique, and you shouldn't be leaving coaches that teach high-level technique, because the high-level technique is the only thing that's going to get you there. That's my opinion. You got to train hard. You got to grow your social media as well. You got to grow your social media. It's a different time. Social media is a must. You have to do that, and you got to train hard 6 days a week, and you need to drill. You need, like, I used to work a full-time job, and 10, 12 hours a day, minimum 8 hours, 9 hours a day. I had multiple jobs coming up. I never stayed at one job because that wasn't my goal. My goal was to be a fighter. But I worked in the oil field. I've worked security, bouncing, many different jobs, right? But no matter what, I still train basically 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. If you have a full-time job, this is totally possible. You're just not going to have a life. You're not going to have a life. You're going to sacrifice a lot. You're going to miss birthday parties. But there is a chance, guys, if you're going to miss Christmas, maybe if you're at a training camp and you're fighting or whatever, depending on where your parents live. I mean, I've only missed 1 or 2 Christmases when I was in the UFC. Any other subjects you'd like me to go over, just leave a comment below, and I'll try to make a video about it. If you're new to martial arts and you're looking for a gym in your area, get my book, The Ultimate Guide to Choose Your Martial Arts School and Instructor. Link is in the description. Thank you, guys.